To kick off, I'm Joel Torr. I'm the head of business development and partnerships for Ford Pro Charging. Thank you for being here today. Every one of you is going to be at a different point in your electrification journey, either just getting started, are these vehicles real, should we actually invest in charging, maybe we should rely on public charging, or we're going 1,000 miles an hour, we're going to take advantage of incentives that are out there, and we're going to turn over our fleet and focus on a lot of those operational cost savings and energy cost savings that EV brings with us. So we're here for you wherever you are in your journey. So thanks for joining me today. First question, just to jump right in, what would convince you to invest more in electric vehicles and charging? So I've got 4 answers for you to choose from, no right or wrong answer. The first is that having a government compliant solution would help enable your transition, right? So to take advantage of a lot of the federal funding that's out there available today or coming down the road. Number 2, having a reliable partner that'll help hold your hand as you transition. Again, depending how fast or how slow you want to move. Number 3, having a cost-effective solution that will scale your EV fleet. And number 4, my personal favorite, having a single point of contact, right? The overused and abused metaphor, one throat to choke. We want to be that one throat to choke. So having a single point of contact for design, build, installation, and development of your depot charger. So we'll throw up some responses as they're coming in here. Focused on the data, about half of you are looking at a reliable partner who can help scale at a pace that meets your needs. That's why we're here. We aren't going anywhere. Ford's been around for 119 years. We plan on being around for another 119 years, and not just focusing on electrification. ICE, gasoline, diesel-powered vehicles, they're not going anywhere. I own and operate a farm in South Carolina with my wife. I've got a big giant diesel truck. So I'm the EV nerd by day, and I'm the truck driving farmer hauling horses up and down coastal Carolina by night. So I know it's real. We got to have that reliability to believe that the solution is backed by Ford, and that's why we're here. Having a single point of contact for design build is important. And then lastly, I think it's still relevant is the funding. Everything we do is tied in not only on the retail and the commercial side through our business development folks that work with the government at the federal, state, and local level to make sure that we're out there getting approved, getting our hardware approved, getting our software approved for these different programs. Because as much as some of these grants, some of these tax incentives are available, they've got to actually be tied to the programs that make sure we get the right hardware and the right software out there. So we're constantly looking for new ways to make it more affordable to transition and building those into some of our program costs. So thanks for the responses. If you think about where we kind of want to start, we look at the journey, we kind of simplify it down into 3 simple elements. It starts with a plan. If we don't come up with a successful plan, not just for transition and how to start turning over the fleet, but charging and how to develop that charging infrastructure, we're never going to get to deployment, and we're never going to get to the fun in operating your infrastructure so your vehicles are charged and ready at the lowest possible cost. So purpose-built vehicles, our BevFit team, our consultants, making sure that the vehicle is matched to the duty cycle. We've got a complete set of charging solutions from home to depot to public with the Blue Oval charging network, which I'll talk about a bit later. And then having a mindset of seamless operations. So we don't just kind of bowl past deployment, hey, let's just get out in operations, right? Another question to think about, which helps kind of set the tone for some follow-up conversation, how many of you already have incorporated EVs into your fleet? This isn't just a yes or no, it's actually I've got some Ford vehicles, I've got some non-Ford vehicles, I've got both, I don't have any. The important thing here is we are a multi-make solution. So as much as I am excited to charge Lightnings and Mach-E's and e-Transits, that's boring. We do that every day. We're always looking for the next vehicle that we can charge, the next vehicle that we can help control costs and manage uptime for. I'm an engineer, product development background, and heavy bus and truck. These are small vehicles. These are like little toy vehicles. I'm used to working with big vehicles. Now I'm in a great, fortunate situation with our sales team, with our commercial vehicle team. We can help work with all makes and models and classes of electric vehicles to make sure they're all charged and ready. One comprehensive solution. So let's just kind of see what the numbers show here. Awesome. 18% of you have Ford vehicles already, some Mach-E, some E-Transits. Maybe you're lucky and you already have a Lightning. Yes, non-Ford. It's amazing what we can do as an industry now that we're operating off standards. And standards are key, more so in the commercial space than retail, but they're key to scaling up, right? We can't scale up with a bunch of one-off proprietary solutions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Yes, both. I love the mixed fleet approach. And then no, fantastic, because you should be able to learn everything you need at this workshop about Ford Pro products and services. So we're hoping that it's not just vehicles or charging or software or service. We're hoping that it's everything that you need to really start thinking about the transition to electric. So thank you for your responses. It's incredibly complex. We wouldn't have built an end-to-end solution if we weren't trying to solve a complex problem. Utility coordination with the energy companies that are providing power or selling you energy is key. They don't always see this coming, right? They don't know when you're going to turn over your fleet. There are some ZEV mandate states that have put a stake in the ground and said, hey, by 2030, we want all new vehicle sales or all new truck sales to be electric. That's a third of the country. There's 2/3 of the country where it's just, hey, let's just see what happens, right? So being able to engage with the utility for your specific projects, that's paramount to getting everything set up. Also providing line of sight for the utility, because they're planning out in a 5-year time horizon most times. And that 5-year time horizon is informed by how much load, how much demand is coming their way. Well, small solution here, small solution there. It's hard for them to really see that. That upfront conversation is not just about the work we have to do for the site, but also informing future work and upgrades and rate cases that are going to be made at the Public Utility Commission in certain cases, so it becomes easier over time to get installation started. I worked on a project in Southern California, super straightforward. Everything was funded. Construction was supposed to start, design, build, construction was supposed to start and finish within a year. It was a 2-year project, right? It went a year over time with everything in place, funding, the utility, the Energy Commission, but there are just a lot of delays in that process. So the sooner we can get started, the closer we can get to finishing on time. All the challenges on infrastructure, construction, getting the chargers installed, getting the software connected, and timing all that before vehicle delivery is key. The worst possible scenario, the big objective that we've got within the within the business development team in charging is to make sure that vehicles don't show up before the charging infrastructure is in the ground, which is also important because our software supports non-Ford chargers as well. And that is a key piece of providing that complete solution. So it's not just a take it or leave it, and we're going to do everything we can because we've got software, service, telematics, and charging all covered, and FinSimple and financing to help support that. But we've got to be open, and we ought to operate off open standards. So I mentioned standards before, and that's certainly going to continue to come up, and how we make sure that it's flexible, right? You may come to us for design build, you may come to us for software or vehicles, and that's fine. We're happy to put together a solution that's right size, not just one size fits all. They go hand in hand. There's a good kind of lock and key metaphor to put into your mind, and we'll use it again later. But the vehicles and the charging are closely coupled, right? We're only as good as the vehicle. We've got nothing to charge without EVs, and EVs won't charge with retail charging solutions or flaky charging solutions that may not put things like cybersecurity at the forefront of their software development efforts, whether you're a one-man operation or a large company operating across borders. It takes time to plan, deploy, and operate. We want to have these conversations early and often. And getting this wrong because we don't see or we don't engage early enough in the process can have two big impacts. One, in time, unmanaged downtime for vehicles. They're simply not charged. It's a stranded asset. And then two, unmanaged costs. So the great thing about energy with managed costs, it's pretty linear over time. It doesn't fluctuate a lot. I've lived in South Carolina for 10 years. For 10 years, I've paid 10 cents a kilowatt hour for energy. Over that time, my fuel prices have gone like this. That big farm truck that I love to drive, I hate driving right now because I'm paying over $5 a gallon for diesel. And that's real. I don't get to debate that cost. I don't get to fuel at night when it's cheaper. But on the electrification side, that is what we're doing, right? We are focusing on lowering demand and shifting off peak. we do want to charge when it's cheaper. So you do get energy costs that look like that instead of like this. There's 3 distinct offers, Home, Depot, and Public. Why did we do this? Because we want to make charging available everywhere you are, not just at Depot, not just at a home, but out in the wild as well. So if it's a sales trip, if this is a remote operation in construction or energy services, you're setting up a site for 6 months, you're operating a seasonal operation, the charging has to be available wherever you are, right? So totally rethinking fueling today, going to get fuel at a gas station, right? Now we just want to make charging simple, easy, and accessible. It's important that we key in on some of the key benefits early on, which is why I mentioned having the ability to bring your own charging solution from a hardware perspective. Some of you may have chargers already. You may be procuring chargers today. You may be already looking at another solution, not just Ford Pro hardware, and that's great because that's the first thing we've actually accomplished, right? Putting chargers in the ground, or you've kind of got the charging piece figured out. And if it's an open source charger that complies with OCPP, the Open Charge Point Protocol, just like it suggests, it's open, then we can control and connect that charger. If it's a proprietary solution, and there are still a couple out there, we wouldn't be able to. I think those solutions are fine for retail, but they don't really work for commercial where we got to scale up. And the last thing anybody wants to hear is about a proprietary network being hacked because no one actually knows how it operates. An open source network, a standardized network for charging is very easy to operate off of because it's an open network of standards. All of our competitors, we all come together and we agree on the best path forward. It's the same in automotive. All those SAE standards that help develop vehicle safety systems, they're all developed together, and then the different OEMs go out and try and develop the best product off those standards. So charging's no exception. We want to optimize those energy costs. We want to make sure we seamlessly integrate into fleet operations. That includes other software integrations. So similar to Telematics, we can look at other providers and build that into our Telematics platform for software. We want to look at whatever dispatch system you might be using, other programs you may already be participating in, maybe for building demand response. Now we can piggyback charging demand response on top of building demand response. So there's all kinds of other things that we may be able to get into, and we want to try and integrate as seamlessly as we can and bring that all under one roof. So this little flywheel we get into, it's kind of an expansion of that plan, deploy, operate we were talking about. Our consultation team, our planning team wants to sit early, have a lot of conversations about where you're at, quickly make sure we got the right vehicles for the job. Extended range Lightning sounds like a great truck. Maybe that's too much battery. Now you're spending more on a truck and you're paying for a battery you're not actually using. A standard range vehicle, not just the Lightning, may be more appropriate because charging and vehicle capacity, energy capacity, are ultimately what determine range. So it's more than just thinking about, well, the vehicle has this much fuel, it can go this far, or the battery's this big, it can go this far. Well, with charging at home and at Depot and out with Blue Oval charging, now it's a function of when and where we charge. And we want to make sure the vehicle fits the application, the charging hardware requirements support the vehicle operation, and we get through design and construction, procure charging hardware. Our distribution facility is set up in the US. We know that supply chain is challenging these days, so we've done the hard work. We put a lot of time and energy into making that we have hardware and we have supply stock protected to make sure we can, again, scale up as quickly or at your pace without running into some supply chain issues. So a lot of work's gone into that to then get into operations and maintenance. Software, we spend a lot of time getting our software applications set up. It's an enterprise platform where data is really key, protecting your data, making sure you've got license to data, we have license to data. We have to make sure we have the data we need for the software to operate, to do what we need to do, not to go out there and sell your data or expose your data, but also protect your data from a cybersecurity perspective. It's very real. We all remember what happened with the Colonial Pipeline hack. And if you lived down south where I live, you're part of like seeing people with buckets and trash bags trying to fill up with gasoline. I mean, that kind of crazy stuff happened all because of old networks, right? And a lack of probably effort put into maintaining cybersecurity which is something that we focus on quite heavily because this is all connected infrastructure. And so that connectivity is really key, making sure we don't trip up. Pay-by-use flexibility is nice. You can pay for the software subscription monthly, or this could be rolled into a package and actually billed annually or capitalized, just like hardware, on a 3 or 5 year basis as well. So another question, we think about all the complexity, everything we've put into our catalog. It's important to get some feedback. I want to know about your charging experiences for those of you that do have vehicles, and I know there's a number of us out here that do. What's a good or a bad experience that you'd like to share today? Super helpful. I don't care what it is. I don't care how bad it is or how good it is. Looking for just a story, an anecdote about something you've experienced with charging. Yeah.
So we've rolled out roughly 200 EVs, and our biggest hurdle to get over is accounting for the electricity charging at salespeople's homes. So some chargers aren't online. Some of them we can't determine if it's one vehicle or two. Some of them say they're charging, but their mileage doesn't show that they are for PHEVs. But basically shaking out all of the data to say these kilowatt hours went into this vehicle that went into our job. So that's the absolute hardest part that we have right now.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing, because that is important. And I'll talk specifically about how we've been working to solve that so you don't have to. Any other experiences, good, bad, somewhere in between? Horror stories you've heard of on social media? No? All right. We run a program with one of our partners to schedule, order, install, and service chargers installed at all these different locations, and making sure we've got tools specifically for driver reimbursement. So what that looks like, the driver's now paying effectively for fuel. It's coming off of his or her energy bill. That reporting runs through Ford Fleet Marketplace, and that's available for you. We tend to have multiple vehicles in a lot of our homes, and it's a likelihood that a lot of them are going to be electric going forward. So we want to focus on charging and reimbursing the work vehicles, and the other ones are excluded from that equation because they may be using one charger. All of our charging hardware comes with a 3-year parts and labor warranty standard, which I think is key for home installations. There are going to be issues. There's going to inevitably a charge cable that gets driven over. That does include an incidental coverage as well. I think we cover one incident, maybe even two, but that's part of that warranty coverage, which can be extended out to 5 years. The nice thing about the parts and labor coverage, there are no maintainable items. There are no field serviceable items. So if you damage this cable, or the cable's getting frayed or worn out from being dragged around the garage, we're actually not going to come out, replace it. We didn't have parts that day. We'll be back next week. We're going to come out and replace the charger. And so I think that's a nice piece of that warranty offer.
Explain how it is that you would know whether someone was charging their work vehicle or their personal vehicle?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our vehicles are all connected, and our telematics team is working with a lot of you that are here and aren't here to make sure that those modems are activated. And having that connectivity allows us to actually provide that reimbursement for non-Ford chargers as well. So if you have a bunch of these pre-existing chargers in people's homes, maybe they're going to cycle out and put a Mach-E there instead. We'll actually track all that through eTelematics instead of tracking it through the charger, because in that case, maybe it wasn't our charger. So telematics certainly becomes, I guess as the name suggests, it becomes essential to operations. Good.
How do you account for the fluctuations in kilowatt-hour charges when you're doing reimbursement?
Yep. So when we talk about setting up, so the question was, how do we account for variable energy costs throughout the day? When we set up your account, we are setting up your utility rates. So whether that's at individual drivers' homes or at a commercial location, part of that consultation is understanding what utility you work with and what rate plan you're on, so we can control to that actual plan. It's a good question. So the home turnkey design, similar approach to the depot design. It starts with consultation and planning, making sure we know how your vehicles operate and how your fleet works, and then running all that through, again, BEV fit. The vehicle's got to match the duty cycle. We want to come up with the right charging hardware requirements. It's pretty straightforward in the home, except when you're looking at a bigger vehicle like the F-150 Lightning extended range or a non-Ford vehicle that can charge at 19.2 kilowatts. So we want to have that conversation. That charger might be overkill or it may not be. We want to make sure you get the right charger. We don't just want to assume, yeah, I get the 11.5 kilowatt charger, it'll be fine. There may be some nuance there that we haven't covered. Also, not all homes were built last year, right? There are new homes, there are old homes, multi-unit developments. We don't all live in brand new homes. Panel upgrades can be costly, service upgrades can be costly. So part of that home program is really understanding how to segment drivers out. Straightforward home install, modern home, no upgrade required. Some upgrades and then a bunch of unknowns, right? The panels in a utility closet that's below grade and no one's been down there for 50 years. We always uncover some ghosts, like when we really get into it. The driver survey is super easy to use. Effectively, if they can take a picture, then they can run through our survey, because that's all they're doing. They're going around photographing the panel, providing photos. We do the rest of the work to make sure we, again, come up with that program to present back to you as a fleet. These are what your different costs are going to look like, and we can help determine a rollout plan. Hey, maybe we want to focus on the straightforward installs and then tackle the complicated ones later on. Another question when we kind of think about charger connectivity and touching on what we do on the vehicle side to process reimbursement, if it's a non-Ford charger, I've got a question about telematics. How many of you are using Ford Telematics today? How many of you are using a third-party telematics solution? How many have no solution at all, right? Vehicles drive around, they do their thing. You're not really worried about it because you've been running gas or diesel vehicles for a long time, right? You understand how to maintain and operate them. But on the electric side, this may be something worth exploring more. Just to flash up the responses there. Thanks for folks that are using Ford Pro Telematics. Great to see those numbers. But third-party solution is real, right? Like, it's not something we're avoiding. Hey, everyone's going to just start using our setup. Just as important as integration on the charging side for multi-make chargers is the integration on the telematics side. So there's a number of providers that we've already done integration with. There are a number that we're looking to do integrations with going forward. But it's this kind of data that we need to make sure that we continue to develop those those integrations for that application. And for no solution, you can talk to Telematics and make sure we get you connected with the right folks. When we kind of look back at that lock and key metaphor I mentioned before, preconditioning is a perfect example of why you don't want to decouple charging from the vehicle. So the vehicle wants to have a battery that runs at the optimal temperature, just like gas or diesel engine, right? So if you remote start your vehicle like I do, yeah, I like it to be warm when I get in the winter. I like it to be cooled off in the summer. I actually do that to make sure the engine's at optimal temperature, just as important as the cabin, because that engine, properly heated up, properly lubricated, I'm gonna get the most durability out of it. Whether it's a diesel or a gas, same principle applies. It's no different with a battery electric vehicle. We want that battery at the optimal temperature. We're gonna keep that battery alive for a long time, keep it healthy. It's not just about preconditioning the cabin. When you have a charger and a vehicle that talk to each other and are connected and integrated like the Ford Pro solution, when the vehicle wants to precondition, the charger knows and says, all right, let's do it. You've got two separate systems, that's not gonna work, because the charger might not want to charge the vehicle even though the vehicle wants to precondition. So something like preconditioning becomes even more important and even more valuable when working with a fully integrated system from Ford Pro. We also focus on, with the connected vehicles, we focus on range alerts. Whether you're headed out to a location where you have charging or it's a deadhead, you've got to come back, 120 miles one way, 240-mile round trip, you're definitely going to want to know if you're not going to make it. Those range alerts are important because now we can help determine, hey, where are we going to charge with the Blue Oval Charge Network? All that in connected nav. Plug-in status, the vehicle gets plugged in the middle of the night because you're running scheduled operations. Someone plugs it in. That's why we've got these here. You plug it in, it must be charging. What if it isn't, right? What if it wasn't fully seated? What if the charger was too cold, needed to warm up before it started charging? If there's an issue, whether it's a fault or it simply is not charging when it should, we're going to send a notification. Someone can actually go out and get it plugged in or our customer success team can address the issue. Charge logs, all the analysis and reporting, rolling everything up on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for two reasons. We want to make sure the chargers that you invested in are working and you're getting high utilization out of them. We also want to make sure that we're controlling costs, that cost of energy. We don't want it to look like this, like gas or diesel prices. Again, we want it to look like this. So having that analytics, having that reporting, super important so we can continue to work with you over time to make sure the software is doing what it's supposed to do, and in many cases, integrated with existing fleet management tools or using some of the services that you're hearing about at the different sessions today. The public charging approach we take is really meant to simplify things. So the Blue Oval Charging Network is a collection of networks, the largest OEM network today, that allow us to enroll drivers into a single account, eliminate the need for multiple apps, RFID cards. The worst case scenario, a driver pulls out a credit card. Now you're dealing with an expense reimbursement. We want to eliminate that. The subscription to the network for 22 model year vehicles, that subscription cost is covered. So instead of, again, having to manage all these different networks, we did that for you. Now you're just paying for energy that you use. And all that centralized billing comes through Ford Fleet Marketplace. You're actually able to see those billing costs for Blue Oval charging, just like you are the costs for home charging or depot charging. That's important because if you've got a driver that doesn't like driving at home or charging at home just because they like charging at their local coffee shop, they might be paying more for energy. So in South Carolina, I pay 10 cents a kilowatt hour. That's some of the cheapest energy we have in the country. If I public charge in Carolina, I'm probably paying 40 cents a kilowatt hour. There's no way I'm going to pay 4 times as much for fuel if I don't have to. And so from a fleet perspective, again, having visibility into that is key for cost control and misuse management. That public charging network is now over 70,000 charge ports strong, over 7,000 DC fast charge ports, basically covering the US and into Canada as well, continuing to grow over time. This is where on-route notifications are key for, like what I mentioned before. You're driving, hey, I've got to get to a charger. I used more energy at the job site. It was a cold day, heavy payload. The vehicle's consuming more energy than it normally would. That navigated assisted charger location is key. Great, let's find that charger. But what if it's not working? So real-time charging status is just as important as finding that charger so you don't get there running out of energy and then you can't charge because the charger's not operating or it's just completely offline. Plug and charge is just what the name suggests. So there's a portion of the Blue Oval Charge Network that supports plug and charge. That's continuing to evolve and improve over time. What I mean by that specifically is some of the charging hardware that's out there is old. If you've been operating electric vehicles for a while, you've seen brands come and go, network operators come and go. Some of that charging hardware just exists out there in the wild and doesn't support the plug and charge standard. It's key as new hardware rolls out, especially with a lot of infrastructure that's coming our way for public charging. We've got new hardware that supports the standard, software that supports the standard. So what happens? You plug in and that's it. There's no phone app, there's no RFID card, there's no payment swiping. Everything is done through the vehicle. Now the vehicle is effectively your fuel card. The vehicle does the transaction, and all that rolls back into Ford Fleet Marketplace. So we've got centralized billing, so you've got visibility and costs, and everything's consolidated in one place. One thing that I would ask you, remember, I've covered a ton of ground today. Our team is here for you, wherever you're at in your electrification journey. If you need to get a hold of us for anything you need, it could be a question about someone else's charger. I'm happy to answer that question. So is my sales team. So is the consulting team that's out there working to get engaged early and often.